there's still always something going on in the NFL. And the big thing yesterday, finally signed, finally sealed, finally delivered the Lamar Jackson contract, executed, press conference, and plenty of things to break down. It really is. Before I get into it, the sound from the press conference, we got the details yesterday, not long after the contract was signed. It really is a genuinely impressive deal. And the ice broke, I believe. No one wants to say it, Peter, but I believe the ice broke. Combination of things. The arrival of Odell Beckham Jr., who, they won't say it, but I think became a voice of reason for Lamar Jackson. Maybe spoke to him bluntly at a time when no one could or would, or there was no one he would listen to. And then the Jalen Hurts deal. I think that moment is when he woke up from what I've been calling his Deshaun Watson fever dream and realized, even though I can make 100 good arguments as to why I should get the same contract he got or better, that's just not the way it's going to work. So I better take what I can get. And he ended up getting a great deal. Eric DeCosta told me the other day on PFTPM that they basically took the offer he rejected last year in September, just before the start of the season. They ran out of time because he had a deadline of the start of the regular season to end the talks. They took that deal and enhanced it, and boom, they got it done. And I really do believe, Peter, that it was the Jalen Hurts contract that broke that wall down and allowed this deal to get finally completed.
Well, there's no question about it, Mike. And look, I think what ended up happening in this case, and I said this week in my column, is, Lamar Jackson made a mature decision. He realized he wasn't going to be the Curt Flood of football. When Curt Flood, 55 years ago or whatever it was, fought for free agency and fought for his freedom and not to have to just be, go to one team and play with that team for his entire career or until that team wanted him out. And look, Curt Flood didn't win that, but 6 years later, something like that, they did win free agency in baseball. So in this way, you saw it, veteran players all over the league, the NFLPA, they all wanted him to draw a line in the sand for guaranteed contracts. But Mike, as we have talked about, Lamar Jackson was not the right person to hold up as the model to get guaranteed contracts. When you have missed 34% of your team's snaps in the previous 2 years, why, oh why would that team give you a fully guaranteed contract? Because history says you're going to miss some time. Now, maybe you won't. And hey, hopefully over this, 105 games or whatever this 5-year period it is, hopefully he plays them all. But the fact is, it would have been irresponsible for Eric DeCosta and the Ravens to give him a fully guaranteed contract. But the two things that stand out in this contract to me, number one, we now know, Mike, there have been 11 contracts from quarterbacks, some hot as a firecracker, like Jalen Hurts. 11 contracts signed since January 1, 2022. That's in the last 17 months. 11 contracts signed that are $20 million a year or more multi-year contracts for quarterbacks. And only one has been guaranteed. And that is as fluky as the day is long. Obviously, the Cleveland Browns guaranteeing Deshaun Watson's contract. No other contract, and you can correct me, please, if I'm wrong, has been more than 71% guaranteed. So, now, if you look at exactly what has happened, we have seen, without any question, the Deshaun Watson contract is an outlier. There's no other way to describe it. And it could be that maybe Joe Burrow or maybe Justin Herbert might stand up and say, I'm not playing unless everything is guaranteed. I don't know what they're going to say. But they would have a much better argument than Deshaun Watson would. The last thing I would say on this, Mike, is that I think it takes a mature, smart, analytical person. Like Lamar Jackson showed himself to be in this, to back down from what he really wanted and to say, hey, listen, I can sign a contract where over the next 9 months, I make $80 million. And I think that's right. He makes $80 million in this season, and it bleeds a little bit in, into the offseason. So he can make $80 million. Do you know how much money Tom Brady made in his first 10 years in the National Football League? 3 Super Bowls, 15 playoff wins, $76 million. So, look, and I'm not saying there's anything justifiable or anything. Obviously, the money in football has gone wackadoo, but so is the salary cap. So I don't blame Lamar Jackson for getting whatever, or I don't think it's a problem. It's just the way the game is right now. And he did a smart thing in basically saying, I am going to come in because this is the best thing for me right now. It might not be the best thing for the kid, the great quarterback who's a sophomore in college right now, and everybody wants to have all their contracts guaranteed. But this is the best thing for me.
2 quick points before we hear more from Lamar. Number one, there is a tiny asterisk on this idea of fully guaranteed contracts because Kirk Cousins has been signing fully guaranteed contracts of a short duration ever since he arrived in Minnesota. It started as a 3-year fully guaranteed deal. They have a habit of extending by a year, but every penny of every contract he signs is fully guaranteed, but it's short term. Second point tied to the first one. Cousins falls into a category that Deshaun Watson falls into, a player who had true leverage, a player who, different circumstances, created a competition for his services. For Cousins, it was between the Vikings and the Jets. Those were the 2 teams that pursued him the most aggressively when he became an unrestricted free agent after playing the franchise tag game with Washington. For Deshaun Watson, his representatives created a real competition with 4 teams. The Browns got kicked out. The Browns got desperate. The Browns did the kind of thing that a desperate team does when it wants to get a deal done. And those circumstances don't happen very often, where you're even in a position to make a team desperate, where you're in a position to let that desperate team do desperate things. Lamar Jackson was not in the position to do that. There was only 2 ways he was going to get there. Follow the Kirk Cousins path and play 2 years under the franchise tag and then become an unrestricted free agent, or create the same scenario that Deshaun Watson did. And that began with a real trade demand that was followed by, I'm never playing for you again. This isn't just posturing. I'm out. I'm done. That's why when he made his trade demand in March, I thought, well, maybe he's starting down the Deshaun Watson path, but he clearly wasn't. So it's a rare circumstance to get a fully guaranteed deal. You have to have real leverage. I'm not saying it's never going to happen again, but for the guys who are on a team who are re-upping, it's not going to happen. Your current team is not going to be backed into that same corner that you can back teams into if you either hit the open market or you create this 4-team competition via trade and you can get one of the teams to do something desperate/dumb. So it's not shut, but for guys like Burrow and Herbert and all these other quarterbacks who are going to be doing second contracts with their current teams, it's just not going to happen, and the Lamar Jackson situation proved that. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.